some type of war for 200 plus years out of its 236 years of existence. I think it's time that we put a stop to it. But I'd like to do real quick a little chant. I'm going to name off some conflicts, and at the end of that, you would reply, "No more war." We'll start with the Civil War. Civil War.
No more war.
World War I.
No more war.
World War II.
No more war.
Korean War.
No more war.
Vietnam War.
No more war.
Iraq.
No more war.
Afghanistan.
No more war.
And now we have continual saber rattling over Iran.
No more war.
We don't want any more sanctions in Iran. We have some, I'm going to go ahead and start off here with a speaker, and we'll start off with Ellen Ruff, if he doesn't mind. And while Ellen's standing up here, I want to thank everybody for coming out here on a beautiful day. It's the first day of the farmers market. I believe it's Earth Day as well, isn't it? Yeah. Tomorrow? Well, we're close enough because it feels pretty earthy and stuff here today. So it's good to see all, peace-loving people come around and, with the farmers market, feel, spring in the air and all that. So it's a good time to celebrate peace and love here in the state of Wisconsin. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and let Ellen talk. And I just want to say we were supposed to have a sound system, but we're going to be working with the bullhorn. So it'll work, I think.
Thank you, David. Come on in closer. Come on in closer. Come on, we got a little community here. Come on in close. David, in rattling off that list of U.S. wars of aggression, draft a couple that are very much with us today. The trumped-up fake war of aggression that grabbed all of northern Mexico in 1846 from the Republic of Mexico and grabbed Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California. A horrible war of aggression. He dropped out the war, the first offshore imperialist war that grabbed Puerto Rico and Cuba and the Philippines from Spain. And that war continues in the Pacific with, once again, U.S. Special Forces back in the Philippines in talk of reinvigorating, reopening the U.S. naval base at Subic in the Philippines, and Clark Airfield for the coming war for the Pacific. The U.S. strategic planners are already planning, well underway, the war for empire against the ultimate enemy, China. So we got to be careful and learn from that history, a history that we should not forget. How many of you have seen the photographs this week of these GIs in Afghanistan holding up shredded bodies, the trophy-killed portraits? I was on email with a friend of mine, and she said, "This war has really gone bad." And I wrote back to her that U.S. troops, especially in wars of aggression against people of color across the planet, have always taken trophies. They've taken heads, they've taken teeth, they've necklaced ears, they've taken and posed with photographs, and it began long before the U.S. jumped off this continent. Look at the photographs of the late 19th century and the massacres of the Plains Indians. People thrown into trenches. There's a sickness there. And the thing that struck me most about that photograph of this young man with a decapitated hand on his shoulder and another young man posing with a shredded body was because I guess I'm getting a little bit older now. I looked at those photographs and saw babies, these young kids that have been inculcated, brainwashed, taught that somehow in all its absurdity and macabre sense, that it's okay to smile with a dead human being that you've just murdered in your hands. Right now, they're building for an imperial war, and it's not just ExxonMobil Shell, but a gigantic, multinational, interlaced imperial system of the corporate state, of the so-called military-industrial complex, of the surveillance state. There are drones now, and I've seen one already. It was in the news yesterday that numerous universities across, major universities across the United States now have drones. They're preparing for what is called the Great Game, the new grand strategy for control of what Zbigniew Brzezinski, the former National Security Advisor, referred to as the core heartland of Asia. Not just Afghanistan, but Iran, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, as a positioning not just for oil and gas and uranium. Yes, uranium. Kazakhstan, with all its U.S. corporations there now, is the world's largest producer of uranium, in a country that, when it was part of the Soviet Union, was the testing ground for nuclear weapons for the Soviet era from the late 40s into the late 60s. With nuclear testing, it radiated 7,000 square miles. It never told any of the population within that 7,000 square miles what they were up to. And no different from the nuclear tests that were carried out here that poisoned the people of the Rocky Mountains in Utah and Nevada and spread radiation. Now, I only raise that because there's a continuum of dehumanization of violence that goes from the handgun, that standard issue 45 and that M16, all the way to the nuclear bomb. The United States refuses to disavow first strike. Meaning what? While other nations in the world have always said they would never be the first to use a nuclear bomb, the United States, who has been the only country in the world, refuses to disavow first strike. We will use it when the field threatened. And it's nuclear blackmail. It's an atomic bomb pistol held to the heads of the rest of the planet. Right now, because the people of Pakistan became very ticked off when our drones continue to kill their civilians, and the popular movement, no matter what you may think of the ideology of that popular movement in Pakistan, closed the Khyber Pass and began sabotaging the U.S. supply trucks that are keeping the so-called NATO. Let's be straight. NATO is a surrogate U.S. Army. The United States has always run NATO. Have no illusion. When those shipments, due to popular pressure in Pakistan, were closed, the United States looked for other ways to continue its occupation of Central Asia. And they now have what is called the NDN, the Northern Distribution Network, that goes from Riga, Lithuania, on the Baltic, by train. They now carry supplies, everything from toilet paper to ammunition, from the Baltic by train across Russia through the stands, through Kazakhstan, through Uzbekistan, into Iraq. And part of that, they're not going to do away with that northern distribution network, because ultimately they're preparing, and they have, and the Iranians say it very clearly, you are encircling us, you are encircling us, and ultimately they push for regime change in Iran. We, as a movement, and I say that optimistically based upon the numbers here, because we do not have the capacity, the social strength, the political strength, the numbers to affect the course and direction of this policy yet. And I have the hope that we will develop that capacity, but we must say unequivocally, hands off Iran. The Iranian people have suffered enough. Hands off Iran. Now, again, people have heard me say this before. No matter what you think of the nature of the regime, don't be bold, don't be conned into believing that because of the nature of that regime, we should regime change. Because it was the regime change in 1953 that deposed the democratically elected Mohammad Mossadegh in Iran, that began the whole cycle when they brought back the Shah. It was okay under the Shah when the United States and all these major corporations involved in nuclear energy and nuclear development and nuclear weaponry. It was okay under the Shah to help them develop their nuclear infrastructure, which lay dormant. And it began again when the Iranians said, well, we need energy too. Right? Again, don't be conned. Don't be fooled. We say no to that regime change. We say no to that war against Iran that they're building for. No. One more note.
No.
Finish up. We have to understand Israel's connection in this imperial system. Yes. Israel who has never joined the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, never signed it, has, depending on who you read, at least 250 nuclear warheads. And they're in the forefront of saying, no. Iran can't have nuclear weapons. Why? Because they want to maintain that nuclear monopoly of terror, that nuclear weapon to the head. So, I say, no justice, no peace, U.S. out of the Middle East. Bring the troops home now. Bring the troops home, not tomorrow, not next year, not 14 months. Dismantle that whole apparatus, which parenthetically, the University of Wisconsin is involved in up to its eyeballs. Right? I mean, some of us doing that work, and it's concrete and specific, and lots of money changing hands. Not just the U.S. military out of the Middle East, but that whole imperial system of universities and think tanks and corporations and liberal NGOs. Those morons who say, well, gee, yes, this is an authoritarian dictatorial regime and we have to support it, but if we teach them well enough, they'll understand pluralism and democracy and transparency. Well, those same bastards are the same ones who will take that pluralism and that democracy and that transparency and take it from us here at home. So how can they transport it abroad? Thank you.
Tell me what democracy looks like. We are what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like. We are what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like. We are what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like. We are what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like. We are what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like. We are what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like. We are what democracy looks like. Madison, Wisconsin, there's something going on, son. Indiana and Michigan and Boise, Idaho, they're saying, tell me what democracy looks like. We are what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like. We are what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like. We are what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like. We are what democracy looks like. The party that's in power and states across the nation find new ways every hour to repeal civilization. There are people in the streets who won't let this go down. They're taking back the power to turn this thing around. They're saying, tell me what democracy looks like. We are what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like. We are what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like. We are what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like. We are what democracy looks like. Come on, everybody, there's no time to wait. We set the agenda, we set the debate. Sing with me, tell me what democracy looks like. We are what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like. We are what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like. We are what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like. We are what democracy looks like. You are what democracy looks like. We are what...
Thank you, Stephen. All right. There's quite a bit happening around the area. And Larry, you want to talk about the drones? One of the things we've been doing is attending a drone visual up at Volk Field. And Larry Orr with Vets for Peace will tell you a little bit about that event.
And talk in here. I've never been on this end of one of these before. I've heard some things from the other end that were good and not so good. We do have a drone vigil up at Volk Field. There's a training facility there for the drone crews, ground crew. The last Tuesday of every month, people go up from Madison, from Milwaukee, from other places around Wisconsin. We have flyers here with all the details. Please see us. Come and join us. And I personally can't make it on the Tuesdays. I'd like to go up on another day, and I think the more often we go up there, the better. We have found that if we're there at shift change time, we get pretty good response from a lot of the workers on base at Volk Field. It's not always like that. There's a little bit of friction too, but I think it's good for them to see Veterans for Peace there in the forefront, and it's good to see peace activists, and it's good to see everybody out there. You don't have to be a member of anything to go up there and say, hey, this is wrong. I can't give you any exact numbers because nobody knows the numbers, but the drones are getting more and more. The drones are getting smaller. It is Big Brother, and Big Brother is in the sky. The age of privacy is ending, unless we say, no, let's not. The smallest drones at the moment, they tell me, are about the size of a bumblebee. There's lots of technology out there. It's being developed, and we really should make a really nice statement. Let's not do this. That's just with the reconnaissance drones. The weapons-laden drones that are being used in Pakistan and elsewhere, the term is collateral damage. That's real people. If you take out a block, they're not all terrorists. They talk about surgical precision. Yeah. So, if you would please, come and join us anytime you can. Anytime you can, write to whoever you write to and say, let's end this drone thing. It's going to change the way that America looks at the world, just the way that nuclear weapons changed the way that America looks at the world. Here comes the future. Let's make a strong stand against that kind of future. Thank you very much.
As a young man, I carried my pack, and I lived the free life of a rover. From the Murray's green basin to the dusty outback, I waltzed my Matilda all over. Then in 1915, my country said, son, it's time to stop rambling, 'cause there's work to be done. So they gave me a tin hat and they gave me a gun, and they sent me away to the war. And the band played Waltzing Matilda as we sailed away from the quay. And amidst all the tears and the shouts and the cheers, we sailed off for Gallipoli. How well I remember that terrible day when the blood stained the sand and the water, and how in that hell that they call Suvla Bay, we were butchered like lambs at the slaughter. Johnny Turkey was ready, he primed himself well, he showered us with bullets and he rained us with shells, and in 5 minutes flat he'd blown us all to hell, nearly blew us right back to Australia. And the band played Waltzing Matilda as we stopped to bury our slain, and we buried ours and the Turks buried theirs, and it started all over again. Now those who were living did their best to survive in that mad world of dust, blood and fire. And for 7 long weeks I kept myself alive, all the corpses around me piled higher. Then a big Turkish shell knocked me arse over tits, and when I awoke in my hospital bed and saw what it had done, Christ, I wished I was dead. Never knew there were worse things than dying. And no more I'll go waltzing Matilda to the green bushes so far and near, for to hang tens and pegs a man needs 2 legs. No more waltzing Matilda for me. So they collected the cripples the wounded and maimed, and they shipped us back home to Australia. The legless, the armless, the blind and insane, those proud wounded heroes of Suvla. And as our ship pulled into Circular Quay, I looked at the place where me legs used to be, and thank Christ there was nobody waiting for me to grieve and to mourn and to pity. And the band played Waltzing Matilda as they carried us down the gangway, but nobody cheered. They just stood and stared, and they turned their faces away. And now every April I sit on my porch and I watch the parade pass before me. I see my old comrades, how proudly they march, reliving the dreams of past glory. I see the old men, all twisted and torn, the forgotten heroes of a forgotten war. And the young people ask me, what are they marching for? And I ask myself the same question. And the band plays Waltzing Matilda, and the old men still answer the call. But year after year, their numbers get fewer. Someday no one will march there at all. Waltzing Matilda, Waltzing Matilda, oh, go a waltzing Matilda with me.